Good morning, Whitney Ellison here. Welcome back to the Enneagram Mom interviews. This morning we have an awesome guest, Lelia Wendel. She is an 8-wing 9 mom of 3 from Fort Thomas, Kentucky. So before we get started, as a reminder, the Enneagram is a wonderful tool for developing self-awareness and empathy. And our mission with this series is to amplify mom voices by telling our stories, honoring our differences, and offering useful tips from our specific Enneagram strengths that will help all moms and all parents. Today's sponsor is the Wise Wellness Guild. The Wise Wellness Guild is a wonderful membership-based group for women specifically. Welcome to Modern Wellness for Women is their slogan, and they offer wonderful events to develop wellness for women, to empower women to fearlessly go after life and what they want. Wise Wellness Guild has memberships that range across the board as low as $6 a month, and if you stay tuned at the end of this episode, you will get a special code to get your first $6 membership month free if you're interested. With that being said, I see that Lelia has joined, and if you could, Lelia, hit the button to request to join this session, we will get started. Again, she is an 8-wing 9, so it's going to be a great 8-on-8 interview. I can't wait, and we have a lot to talk about. Here she comes. Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Great. Welcome. I'm going to adjust there we go. Well, thank you for making some time for me this morning. You have 3 little boys, so I first want to hear how you finagled getting some time to do this.
I am really lucky. My mom is retired and my father-in-law is retired. So praise Jesus, I'm able to have some flexibility there. So they're at Papa's right now.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me, how old are these little boys?
So 5,
okay,
almost 3, and then almost 6 months.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so Enneagram 8-wing 9. We've kind of had some preliminary discussions. We've got some great topics to hit up. Before we get started, just tell me about yourself. What are you up to these days? Tell me about your day-to-day. What does that look like, and who you are?
All right. So I was a preschool teacher before staying home with Austin. So I have an education background. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. He's a 9. So that's a fun
I'm married
duo.
to a 9 too.
See, I'm telling you, we have to find our piece.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, we've had 3 kiddos. I love staying home. It is like the hardest and the best, but we absolutely love it. And then now I'm just adding homeschool life to my list. We were kind of on the fence about sending Austin to kindergarten this year. He's a May birthday. So we were kind of on the fence, and then COVID hit and we were like, you know what, this is a perfect excuse to stay home. So we are homeschooling him for kindergarten. And then next year we will either homeschool or send him to the district, and the district will just test him and evaluate him and then give us a recommendation for kindergarten or first. So I'm just going to let them decide for us, which is nice.
That makes it easy. And so the preschool teacher background has to help with managing this, because young kids during a time like this is a challenge. Mine are 8, 6, and just a little older than your youngest, just turned a year. Operating with homeschooling during COVID with an infant is no joke. So having that skill set has to hopefully be helpful for you. And I know on your Instagram handle, you've offered some great tips for managing homeschool with the littles. With that being said, you know, being an 8-wing 9, do you feel like these activities speak to your Enneagram archetype?
Definitely. I mean, I love a good challenge. So this was perfect. You know, everybody knows that kids listen better to their teachers. So then when you add parent and teacher together, it can be complicated and dicey.
Yes.
And so we've actually like really made it like a theatrical thing. I'm like, okay, the teacher is talking now, and now the students need to do things. And so that's really helped.
That's a great tip.
It's been so helpful. I mean, if you're having trouble with your kids listening, be like, the whatever, the godmother is talking now, whatever. It really does help to make things theatrical. But so I love a good challenge. So this has been fun. It's been a great outlet for me, honestly, because I'm very creative. And so for some reason, staying at home all the time, I didn't have the energy or the capacity to do artsy, crafty things because I was just trying to keep them alive. This homeschool life has challenged me to become artistic again. And I told my husband, I feel like it's given me life. I feel like I have a light again. Like it's given me so much purpose, I think, which is great. Eights, I think, need a lot of purpose. And so, but it's also kind of, I don't know, maybe might be bad because of my control. You know, eights love control. And so I'm able to control his education, and that could be a good thing. And it could be a bad thing too. I can't control him forever. So Austin had a really hard transition with having a new baby and COVID. And so I was really worried about him going to school and having a teacher love him through some of the stuff he was going through. And so this way I know I can love him through that. But he's also going to have real world experiences where he has to learn to navigate that. And so me controlling his education might not be the best thing forever. For right now, it's working, and we'll take 1 year at a time.
Well, that's great. And I think to speak back to being an 8 and creativity, I want to touch on that for a minute because I think that's really important. And this does not just apply to 8s, but I will say we're a very instinctual gut-based number. We're part of the aggressive stance. We get stuff done. We know how to do that. And sometimes we get lost in that. And what happens is, because like in high school, even a little bit into college, I was really creative. I was very artistic. And then we lose that because we get so focused on driving, like just really plowing through life and making stuff happen. And so COVID did cause a big slowdown, right? And this opportunity to reflect. But I just want to reiterate the importance of tapping into that right brain activity and really becoming a creative again, because ultimately that's what we're here to do, is create. And we forget that, at the behest of ourselves when we're just trying to continue to plow through life. And 8s are really good at just plowing through. So I think that's a great call out to bring up creativity as an 8 and remind 8s and remind every number, that creativity is a very important aspect of life, and we need to recognize that. The other thing with your creativity that I'd love to talk about for a minute, and I know you've had a lot going on right now, so it may have been on hold a little more, but you have a very popular lifestyle blog. And so I'm wondering, with your Enneagram number, how that came into play and, how it started. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's an 8 thing, but I'm like vulnerable to a fault. So when we were trying to get pregnant, it took us about 2 years to get pregnant with Austin, and I blogged our infertility journey just because it felt very inauthentic for me to be like, oh, we're great, everything's fine, and then we're dealing with this really big thing. And so I blogged it as a way to kind of like get my thoughts out on paper, and like electronic paper, and just created like a great community. So many people, 5 years ago, people weren't talking about infertility as much.
Yep.
And so I formed a really great network of people I knew and didn't know through that thing that we were sharing in. And then I had Austin, and I guess, 8s in times of stress go to 5 and I get very inward. So whenever I'm pregnant, I tend to retreat in. But I love the creative aspect of blogging. I love being able to share. I'm an oversharer. So I started blogging again. It's just kind of when I have the capacity mentally, energy wise to do that. And it fills my bucket. It fills up that creative outlet. So I was really blogging great. And then I got pregnant again and go very inward, and had to honestly remove a lot of, I'm very hard on myself. And so I had to be like, you know what, Leela, like, it's okay. You can take a pause. You can take a break. I struggle with, in this time period of motherhood, of my purpose and my passion. I have this passion to share and to motivate and encourage moms, but I also have this like purpose right now of being a mom. And so I have a really hard time navigating that and making sure that my energy is staying where it needs to be to take care of my kids. So for all you moms who are doing, like, working and doing, I bow down to you, because it is really, really hard. So I just am going to give myself grace, and I share when I can. Instagram is much easier. Blogging is a little bit harder, but I do love it. And I will share as much as I can when I can.
Cool. Well, so I heard a few things I wanted to unpack a little more. So you were talking about being vulnerable to a fault, and I will tell you this: eights are not a vulnerable number by us. Let me try to articulate this right. Unself-aware eights are not vulnerable. They avoid it like the plague. So to say that you are vulnerable means that you have evolved and done some work. Having said that, what eights are, that I think speaks to this as well, is they're truth tellers. We do not BS around, we do not beat around the bush, and we are very direct, and we are very open with our stories. Typically, we're going to guard ourselves and protect ourselves from certain details that we don't want to share. But if we have something to say that we feel like is going to help someone else, you better believe we're going to talk about it. And so that level of vulnerability is there because we are protectors by nature. And having said that, when you go through something as traumatic as infertility, I do believe that that's the perfect example of an eight using her voice to help others. And clearly it resonated with a lot of people. When an eight becomes self-aware, vulnerability becomes a part of her practice, but I think it's a discipline that we have to work on. Having said that, I've talked to another eight about this as well. Eights in support go to twos, right? So two is the helper or the giver, much more emotional number. The interesting thing about support numbers is that your support number is that inner child that you built a shield around to protect with the personality and motivation of your Enneagram archetype, right? So twos are vulnerable numbers. And so what happens when eights become vulnerable is we're going into that support section and becoming twos and really being able to be generous and loving and giving. The other thing that I love that you said was you talked about your capacity and your energy. Eights are great at maintaining boundaries. So the fact that you took a break from your blog without thinking twice about it because you knew you were in a stage of life where that was not the top priority speaks to your awareness of boundaries. I'd love for you to touch on that.
Yeah, man, I am the biggest proponent of boundaries. I set very clear boundaries, and we'll talk about that with my childhood. But I mean, I have no problem, like my cup says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I'm very
I love it.
That. Like,
yeah, is there an eight on the back of that cup?
Like if I can't give myself fully to something, I can't. And so I am very big on boundaries. And if I feel like someone is threatening my, the happiness, the well-being of my family, of my inner sanctum, it's got to be done. And so I have cut off friendships. I've very much about it. We can't cross boundaries. And I'm like that big with parenting. And I've done that with, family members even. Like I'm very, very protective of my inner sanctum. And all about control, right? And I guess it can be a good thing and a bad thing, but I've done a lot of therapy to help myself get to a place where I'm okay with that. I give myself grace that that's my personality. And I just have to do what's best for my family. So
Well, I think I've mentioned in prior interviews, but the Enneagram 8 is the most misunderstood, or female Enneagram 8 is the most misunderstood number on the Enneagram, misunderstood individual on the Enneagram, I should say, because we are an aggressive stance. We are very instinctual. We often come off having traits that are considered by our society to be more masculine than feminine, and that makes people uncomfortable. And I'm so over it, right? And so for women, oftentimes it's hard for us to say no because we have this level of guilt that we're supposed to be everything to everybody. Female eights tend to have this natural ability to overcome that quicker. And I think that that's a superpower that we can help our fellow female sisters with in terms of articulating the word no and boundaries to protect our sacred time, right? So I love that. And our type's motivation is to be in control. And I think there's this misconception that means we must control everything, which is simply not the case. What it is we have trust issues. So if we feel like a situation is getting chaotic, and we can't trust that there's somebody present that's going to get it under control, we are going to take over and get it under control real fast. Or if we believe we're the best person to do something, we are innately going to step up. And if we're not self-aware, it could be at the behest of others that we should be listening to and taking into consideration. So having said that, the motivation of an 8 is to be in control, the situation, to be in control. These are typically developed during childhood, right? So I'd love for you to share, to the extent that you're comfortable, a little bit about your childhood and what event helped you develop this core motivation.
Yeah, man, this is the question for an 8, right? Like, this is the hard question for an 8. So, and like I said, I'm vulnerable to a fault, but I have to be respectful of other people involved. So probably the biggest through line is that my dad is bipolar. So dealing with his mental illness throughout my childhood just, shaped who I am.
Sure.
He, as much as he had his flaws, he had some good qualities that I'm able to take away with. And he was, mentally ill, but he was very self-aware and was aware of his size and of his power, I guess. And so he was not a yeller. He was not a hitter as a kid. And I think as a child, I could see that was like a big deal, that he didn't allow his anger and his rage and his mental illness to get in the way of parenting.
Yeah.
And so his self-awareness really rubbed off on me and has shaped how we parent our children. But he was also very verbally abusive. So, that obviously shaped who I am. I am very blessed to have an extremely strong and powerful mom, who she thinks she's a 9. She hasn't dove too deep into the Enneagram. So it's funny that she is a 9 and was able to create peace in our family.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does.
But she just empowered me so much, and, is absolutely why I was able to go to be as self-aware as I am now. And there were obviously other things that shaped who I am and more to my story, and one-on-one, I will tell you it all. But
that's fair. No, I appreciate you sharing, these are vulnerable details, and I appreciate you sharing what you have. And I think that speaks to the circumstances where oftentimes 8s in childhood tend to lose their innocence faster than other children of a certain age. Between the ages of 8 and 13 is when our personalities really start to develop, and when we create the response system for how we deal with difficult situations. And oftentimes child 8s are put in a situation where they have to become an adult sooner than they should. And so I think that really speaks to that experience, right? Because you're managing a parent with mental illness, even a self-aware parent, but you are managing, the verbal abuse and the things that really are going to be extremely foundational to how you respond to situations. And then to have a 9 mother balance that out, she must have an 8 wing because she was protecting you, right? And not that we type people, but if we're talking theoretically about it, that's very possible. And also what you did was you were that 8 child protecting your 2 inner self, right? So I find that very interesting. And there's another thing I want to touch on that we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday in dialogue after I watched one of your posts. You're talking about your household with your children. Now you've got 3 young kids. You're in the middle of a pandemic. You've got helpers, but I mean, we're not getting out much. Let's be real, right? And you're able, as an 8, a very anger-based, external anger-based number, to not yell. Okay? You need to explain this. Explain it now.
Oh my gosh. So there's so many components to it. I could tell at a very young age that my first response to things was anger, and I really didn't like that. And I don't know if that's a societal, like, I am a woman and I shouldn't be angry. I don't know where that, but I think I carried a lot of shame about anger and responding angrily. And I wasn't like a super outwardly angry person. It was internal. It was an internal, like, if I saw something that I didn't like, rage, like full on rage. And so I saw that. And then as we had Austin, I remember thinking, like, I don't want him to feel this way when he sees something he's upset about. I don't want him to feel rage and anger, and he might, because who knows what number he'll be. But so to do that, I felt like I needed to kind of set boundaries. I'm a
Yes.
big person on boundaries. And so I follow a girl named Ralphie. I don't know what her last name is. Simply on Purpose. If you're a parent and you don't follow Simply on Purpose, she's great. But she does these no yell challenges. And Alex and I did one, I don't know, really early on. We weren't big yellers anyways, but when Austin was like 2, I guess, we were like, all right, we're just not going to yell. And I think just setting that clear boundary, we just don't. In order to not yell, I have done a lot of behavioral therapy. When Austin was little is when I found my behavioral therapist, because I could see, honestly, I remember it clear as day. I was working out. He was crying. He was like 4 months old. And I could not get him to stop crying. I'm like, I'm trying to finish this workout, you know, and I got upset and I threw my weights down on the ground and like literally stomped my feet and yelled out loud. And I called my husband and was like, all right, so when Austin has a fit and he throws something on the ground and he yells, we're going to know he learned that from his mother. No, I don't want that to happen. So I found a behavioral therapist. She taught me a lot of great coping mechanisms. So when I'm feeling frustrated, I immediately ground myself. I literally sit down on the ground and I take deep breaths. And now our kids do that.
That's
if they're
great.
upset, they sit down, they take deep breaths. So it's just learning coping mechanisms, what works for you. Breathing techniques are big. And I think just setting that boundary helps.
And I think that really speaks to your 9 wing, right? You're bringing in harmony and peacemaking into the situation by managing that. So that's very helpful. So, you know, with that being said, that kind of segues nicely into the next question, which is, how has the Enneagram helped you in motherhood?
I mean, so much. I think I like a good challenge. So and I'm also a learner. I just want to read all the books. Is it an 8 thing that you want to be like as best as possible? I don't know, but like, I just want to do the best that I possibly can, especially when it comes to my children. So I read. I follow all the podcasts and I just want to do the best that I can. And I like to challenge myself to do that. So, Alex and I are really intentional with how we parent. And if I read something, my sweet peacekeeping 9 husband would probably be happy just to like sit on the outskirts, but I really challenge him to walk alongside me. Here's this book I want you to read, or here's this podcast I want you to listen to. And he's incredible and does it. And we just work together as a team. So I think I'm able to challenge myself to be as good as I can and work as hard and find things that are going to work for my kids, because every kid is so different. But I'm also able to challenge my husband to do the same thing and just let's figure out what's going to work in this stage of life, because every kid is different and every age is different. And we're constantly pivoting and figuring out what's going to work.
Well, and I think, so going back to your question real quick about doing things as best you can, is that an 8 thing? Doing things as best you can, it tends to be more of a 1 thing. However, it's an 8 thing when it's something an 8 cares about. So if ones, it's like a universal. I need to be good. I need to be correct. Boom, across the board. With an 8, I found 8s have this level of, well, the passion of an 8 is lust, right? That lust is not necessarily a sexualized version of lust. It's just the idea that when you find something that you want to absorb, you go full throttle until you've mastered it. And that also falls into your 5 stress number. So when you get into an area of stress and you withdraw, you start to really build up your knowledge. And if you're doing it in a healthy way, you're still letting people in, but you understand that you have boundaries right now that you need to withdraw for a bit. So having said that, I think that speaks to both. With an 8, we always want to execute well, as long as it's for a cause we care about. And if it's not, we don't care. So, you know, and that's just kind of an 8. And that's the same way it is with people. Like, we care about people as a universal, and we care about justice as a universal, but not in the sense that it's black and white law, in the sense that everyone is equally treated. So we're like the justice, like Robin Hood is, right? We're going to make sure that everybody's taken care of. And if you're marginalized, we're going to come be your shield, you know? And so that's the difference between a 1 and an 8, is the 1 really cares about justice too, but it's like, because justice is the law and there's order with the law, right? So interesting thing, and all that to say, we are inherent protectors. So when it comes to our children, that's a cause we really, really, really care about.
And it's all children. Like, I will run full throttle to a child that I feel like is being mistreated. And that is where I've had to set some clear boundaries, where I feel like if you're not parenting respectfully, then I can't allow that to be in my inner sanctum.
Yep.
I have to set some clear boundaries with people.
Yep. Yep. And I think that, you know, again, also speaks to our personality type of just surrounding ourselves with people that we trust. Right.
Absolutely.
So you've already offered a lot of, like, an abundance of great suggestions, tips, you know, parenting secrets. But, you know, if you have any more that you'd like to share that, you know, speak to your 8 strengths that you think would help all moms or all parents, that comes from your Enneagram strengths, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I feel like all Enneagram numbers, I think that it's so important for you to understand. As far as parenting goes, I think that you need to really be a student to your spouse in order to parent really well. And understanding your spouse's Enneagram number, understanding how they think, is going to help you parent well. It's going to give you a lot of, I don't know, perspective on how they process things, and it helps you to parent better. So I just feel like, first and foremost, like, you have to have a good foundation for your marriage. Really just be a student to your spouse, because if there's tension with the parents, like, it's gonna permeate through how you parent. And then as far as 8s, I would just say, man, learn some meditation, breathing techniques, because Lord have mercy, the anger is there, and we just have to learn to, like, we have to, like, pull in that 9 wing and be some peace for our kids, because they're just little and they're just trying to do the best they can, and you're trying to do the best they can. And I think also, like, if you have an anger moment, give yourself all of the grace and apologize to your child. Like, there's so much apologies. Mommy should not have responded that way. I am so sorry. I love you. Yeah. Let's turn the day around. Yeah. All the grace.
Yeah. And I think that's important too. I know for me, like, sometimes I'm just like, I am in a space where I know I'm not in a good place, and that I'm sensitive. I'm unable to process things rationally. And I will literally say to my kids, guys, mommy's very grumpy right now, and I'm really sorry, but please just, you know, let me be for a little bit. And if you're ever grumpy, all you need to do is tell me, and I will let you be, you know. But, like, I try to give them, you know, a heads up, because I know when I'm like that, the trigger is very, very sensitive.
Well, and you're teaching them boundaries too.
Right.
I mean, like, you're teaching them, like, okay, if you're upset and angry, you got to take a beat. And mommy's feeling it. No, I got to take a beat. I'm going to go take a moment. We learned this thing called the zones of regulation. If you Google it, I'm sure it's a thing. The zones of regulation, and it kind of tells you different zones that you're in as far as feelings. So we've worked on that a lot with Austin, our 5-year-old. And I'll be like, man, you're in the yellow. You seem really excited, or you seem really frustrated. And now I'm starting to do that to myself. Like, mommy is in the yellow. I need to go take a few minutes to myself. Can you go play for a second? Or here's a show where mommy is in the red. I am really mad, and I need to go outside for a minute. It's important for them to be able to articulate that, and they do that by us modeling it. So
and know that emotions are okay and important, especially with our boys, right?
Absolutely. They are okay. You're okay. You're safe. I love you. You're a great kid.
Yes. Amen. Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. Is there anything else you would like to add before we end this interview?
Yeah, no, I just encourage you guys to just lean into your number, learn. I mean, I love to learn. And so educate yourself, and
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's really nice to meet you live, you know, and when, you know, the COVID kind of dissipates at some point, because it will.
We'll do a coffee.
We'll grab coffee. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Lelia. Great talking to you. Take care. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Again, a special thank you to Lelia Wendel. You can follow her Instagram handle, which will be tagged on this post. I believe it is Lelia Wendel, and learn more about her and what she has to offer as a parent. Also, a special thank you to our sponsor, the Wise Wellness Guild. If you're interested in a membership, there is an offering of a $6 free month of membership. The $6 membership, the first month is free. If you go onto Wise Wellness Guild's website and type in Month of Wellness as a code, and you will get that $6 off your first month of membership. I highly recommend you consider joining them. They are a wonderful organization offering an abundance of opportunity for personal wellness development for the modern woman. I am a founding member. I'm really proud to be a part of that organization, and it is a national organization. We have people all across the U.S. participating as speakers and as members. So please consider joining. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to be a resource for you. Up next on Friday, we have Crystal Hunsucker. She is going to be awesome. She is from Dallas, Texas. She's a 3-wing 2, and she is a Mary Kay goddess, and a person I've known for a very long time who is just vibrant, loving, and has great energy. She will infuse you with a lot of motivation and energy when we talk on Friday. So I look forward to that. Thank you again for joining me today. You all have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.